Hi friends, I'm excited to share a new layout with you today for the July YouTube sketch shop. Here is the group of talented ladies that will be using the sketch this month, and here is the sketch that we are using from Allison Davis, and scrapbook and cards today. So I love this sketch, and I had a lot of fun picking out papers and embellishments that would work well with this. So the collection that I'm using for all of the patterned papers is Simple Stories Summer Snapshots. So I went through, I'm actually using the 6x8 papers, and I am going ahead and cutting the triangles that are on the left side of the sketch that kind of go all the way down the page and anchor that. So my process, there's probably an easier way to do this. Cutting triangles, you could definitely use a die cutting machine or a like Cricut or Silhouette or something like that. But what I did is I took the corners of most of the pattern papers. I used the corner, and I measured 4 inches up and 4 inches on either side, horizontally and vertically, and then cut from the corner. So then the triangles that I wanted the patterns to be going a certain way, I just traced one of the other triangles that I'd already cut. And I got a rainbow of colors there, and I love that rainbow of colors. So our theme this month is happy. So what better could I find to go with that theme than my kids and a day that we spent in the sunshine? So, and my husband too, but he was actually working in the yard when we were swimming and taking these pictures, so he's not in there. But I picked out 2 photos, went ahead and backed those on another piece of the patterned paper from that Simple Stories Summer Snapshot collection. And then once I had the triangles picked and the order everything was going to go in and where my photo was going to go, I went ahead and kind of traced around the photo with a pencil, and then just that top triangle so I knew how wide it was going to be. And then here what I am doing is I am taking Distress ink. So these are the re-inker bottles. If you have been watching my channel for a long time, you've seen me use these before. Actually, my previous channel where I have my older videos, you have seen me create with these Distress ink re-inker bottles. And the purpose of these bottles, they're really supposed to be used to re-wet a Distress ink pad, and I use them as liquid watercolor. So, and I've done that for years, and it gives me a vivid color, a very saturated color to be able to use on projects. And so what I did here is I took the colors that were coordinating with the collection and did just all of the color that you see of each shade is 1 drop. So I took 1 drop of the mowed lawn, that's the green, and put it on just a sheet of packaging. That's packaging that kind of has a texture to it in my hand. And I'm using 1 drop of each color. So mowed lawn is the green. The yellow is fossilized amber. The orange was spice marmalade that I started with. And then the pink at the top was worn lipstick. And then I am going to go back and add a little bit darker pink in there too. So, but I started with worn lipstick, and then the aqua is salvaged patina. What's one of my favorite colors for sure. And then the navy is chipped sapphire. And again, all it takes with the re-inker bottles, a little bit goes a long way. So I am using 1 drop of color to get all of this saturated color. Imagine how long it would take me with an ink pad to get that same amount of saturated color. It would take forever. So you have seen me before turn my ink pad over on my glass mat and use color from that, but you get definitely a lighter shade of color. You don't get that saturated, vivid color. So with these re-inker bottles, and I have all of the re-inker bottles for Distress Oxides too. So if you want a milkier look, but you want it to be a super saturated color, you can do the same thing with the Distress Oxide re-inkers. So I've used those the same way. And then the color at the top is, I think that is Festive Berries is what I ended up going with. So that was a good match to the darker kind of corally pinky color that is in this collection. So what I'm doing is I wanted color to kind of anchor behind all of the triangles going down the page. And then you can see that I have randomly pulled the color over to the right side of the layout as well. That is because I wanted some color poking out behind the photo. So right now it looks like a hot mess and it looks like way too much going on the background. And the important thing to remember when you're watching a mixed media layout be made in the process is that much of this is going to be covered up with patterned paper and photos and embellishments and all of those things. So you will definitely see the color poking out. It is a very vivid, bright layout that, you know, my signature style, my favorite way to scrapbook is a lot of bold, vivid color and lots of different mediums used. So I started with the Distress ink, and then I'm going back now. You can see I'm adding another drop just to add some splatters of each color. I could have done that when I had the color on the packaging, and I should have, but I forgot. And so now I'm going back and adding a little bit more color here. So just one drop, and you can see I've got plenty of color left over. If I had another project, I could have used that for sure, because it is amazing how much you can get. And I have been using these re-inker bottles for years and years and years, like a lot of years, and you can't even tell that anything has gone out of the bottle. So that's definitely a lot of bang for your buck if you are into mixed media and want to try that out. You get a lot of color and a lot of projects for very little. So now what I am doing, I let all of the Distress ink dry really well, because now I'm using Distress Oxide. And if you have been around the Distress world, you've probably heard it said that you can't use Distress ink and Distress Oxide. You definitely shouldn't mix them, but I often use them on the same layout together, layered together. The important part is that you make sure that one layer is dry before you add another layer. So I made sure that the Distress ink that was on the background was completely dry before I went with my Distress Oxide brushes and added more color on top of that. So you definitely can use both in combination, but you should not mix them. They are different formulas, different chemical formulas, and you wouldn't want to mix them together. So, but here you can use them as I'm using them. This is a stencil from Sweet Rush, from one of Vicki Boutin's past collections. And the reason I picked this stencil is because the layout was very heavy on the triangles over on the left side. And I loved this stencil I love all the triangles kind of going every which way there. And so I took the same coordinating colors that I had used with the Distress ink and took the Distress Oxides of those and added that layer on top with blending brushes. So really easy to do. And then unfortunately I skipped ahead. I've had some footage of me gluing down the triangles, but I thought I had footage of it and I skipped ahead. I don't know. So I glued the top of each triangle, kind of the flat part at the top, and I did use a T-square ruler to make sure that they were straight. So I lined up like the left edge of the triangle, and then I made sure all of the points were lined up with my T-square ruler going down the center of those triangles, because it was, important to me visually that they line up accurately. So while I am a very messy scrapbooker, I'm also sort of OCD. So I have to have everything that's supposed to be lined up. So those triangles are in perfect alignment. And then I went ahead and glued down the photo. I did add a layer of craft foam behind the photo before I glued it down, so it does sit up just a touch. And then I pulled out a bunch of flowers, and those are from the Cocoa Vanilla Bloom and Grow collection. I used those, I think, on last month's layout too. I love Cocoa Vanilla's flowers. So I love all of the shapes of the flowers and how they're always full of vivid color. And those colors worked really well with the Simple Stories collection. So pulled out those flowers, and then the title, the word sunshine, comes from the Simple Story Summer Snapshots collection. It's from the sticker, the 6x8, one of the 6x8 sticker sheets. And then I am going to use the word happy because that's the theme this month. So Happy in the Sunshine is going to be my full title. So the word happy is a gold foiled thicker foam thicker, and those are old. I don't even know, like I wouldn't even be able to tell you what collection or anything. I've had them for so long. It would be, I have no idea what collection they came out with, but I love the size and the scale of the title, the word happy. And then I love titles that mix cursive and print. So I've got the word happy is in cursive, and then sunshine is in print. That was from the sticker sheet. I forgot to mention it's from the sticker sheet, but I adhered it down to a piece of white paper before I put it on the layout just to make it a little bit heftier. The stickers were not quite vellum. They're a little bit, they're more opaque than vellum, but it was very flimsy. So I wanted it popped up on craft foam, so it was important that I added another layer to kind of make it a little bit sturdier. And then I added just a touch of craft foam behind the word sunshine. The parts that were hanging off of the photo, hanging down below the photo, I put craft foam behind that. And then the middle of my title, in the, happy in the sunshine, the words in the are from one of Paige Evans' past collections. I'm not sure, I can't remember which one, but it's those navy little teeny tiny letters. And I thought that was really pretty with the navy blue in the Simple Stories collection. So I went ahead and added those. And then the flowers from the Bloom and Grow collection, they all had white borders. So I did have to spend some time kind of fussy cutting those out, cutting off the white borders, and then building those clusters. So I do have some tangled thread here that I'm adding, and I added it yellow, light pink, and then in the cluster that's going to go down below the photo, I will also have navy blue. And then of course the flowers are popped up on different levels of craft foam. I have several different kinds of craft foam that I use. And so I just cut it up and add my own adhesive, and I have lots of different sizes or different thicknesses of that because I want my floral clusters to be varied, and I want them to look like there's some depth and some shadowing for sure going on. So I went ahead and glued those down, and then of course, like always, I rolled up the petals of the flowers and kind of pinched together the tips of the leaves to make sure that those also add dimension to the layout. And I've got to get my messy, my messy thread that I'm adding just right. So I kind of play around with that for a minute, make sure I've got the tails of that where I want them to go. And then I'm going to work on that cluster down the right. And just like in the sketch, it's a little bit more subtle in the sketch, but I do have my embellishments triangulating the photos. So in the original sketch, the photos were going horizontal, so it was two photos stacked on top of each other going horizontally. And I switched that. I do still have the two photos, but mine are going vertically, side by side, instead of on, one above the other. And then in the sketch, there's some hearts, and there's kind of small embellishments. And of course, I love to embellish, so mine are a little bit bigger, but they do go triangulate around the photo, and that does help draw your eye into the photo so that is the focal point. I also added a little bit of journaling down there. That little journaling block is from the Cocoa Vanilla collection, and I journaled about these photos. And then I pulled out my box here of half pearls and crystals. Everything in the box is from Buttons Galore and More. And then the box itself was from Container Store. I just put it together myself. I get that question a lot, so I'm going ahead and saying it again. And then this is Pops of Color from scrapbook.com. I love Pops of Color, and I have them in every color. Here on this layout, I just used 3 colors. So I used kind of a corally pink, light pink, and then an orange and a yellow. And then that is the final layout. So I've got a bunch of close-ups here so that you can see all of that detailing. And if you have any questions, please pop them down in the comments. Also, let me know what you think. I love all of that bright color that you see there. And all of the layers make me so happy when I look back at this. So if you have any questions, let me know. Please be sure and check out all of the other videos in the YouTube sketch hop. There's lots of talented ladies that take lots of different takes on the same sketch, and it is fun to see. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.